longer fight the units within their zone, then they'll go back to the platform to wait for another chance. So basically, the heroes don't chase units out recklessly anymore. There's not going to be this element of luring heroes out to try to take them out of the fight.
Yeah, so I mean, if you're going to drop a barbarian, you might drop it nearby. Say like you're trying to lure out the barbarian king. If I drop my barbarian, you guys might notice like on the video right here, he'll get like question marks above his head, which means you're sort of nearing his territory, and he'll actually start sticking around that area waiting for you to get closer. But let's say you alert him and you get your barbarian inside and you actually have the king with his exclamation points above his head. So when that troop dies, if you drop a troop on the other side of the map, even though he was previously alerted, he's not just going to run all the way over there for you to take him out. He's still going to stay in his territory. And he's sort of like we were talking about previously, I think yesterday, we talked about how they're sort of going to be like almost like a defensive building, like a tower. They're going to have their territory. They're going to attack. They're actually going to provide some usefulness on defense.
Yeah, and at the same time, you can bet that they're going to be getting some support from their defensive towers as well. So sort of no more free lunch in terms of killing the heroes. However, to try to balance this, one of the things that we've done, and this affects both the offense and the defense, is that we've actually taken a close look at the base stats, the hit points and the damage for both the king and the queen. And another thing that we've noticed with the heroes is that on the very early levels, like say 1 through 10 or so, the heroes have felt a bit weak. Like, you know, we like the fact that the heroes feel like this dominating presence, the king and queen of your army, when you're taking them out into the battle. However, when you have heroes that are around level 5 or so, they sort of feel like, you know, there's not much you can do. So in the addition of the abilities getting a big boost, we've increased the base hit points for both the king and the queen, and the base damage for the queen as well. We didn't do it for the king, but we'll get to that in a second. The other thing that we did is that we actually did a pretty heavy decrease on both the hit points and the damage for both the king and the queen, especially on the later levels. And the main reason for this is because now that the heroes are going to be an active part of the defense, you know, it would be a bit too daunting to try to approach as an attacking army. Like if you think about there being a defensive tower in the base that has 5,000 hit points and some several hundred damage per second, it's not gonna be a very easy challenge for you. So basically, we toned down the stats so that they're a bit more appropriate when you're engaging the heroes on defense. But to compensate for that, we've been really focusing on making the abilities stronger, making the abilities more unique, and making them a lot more important. One of the other sort of shortcomings we've been seeing of the heroes is that they're a bit too safe, I guess is one way to say it. You can be pretty sloppy with how you're placing them, with the timing of the abilities, with the timing of deploying them with the rest of your troops, but just because of the fact that they were so dominating in the battle, you know, you could sort of get away with it. And that's one of the things that we thought should change. You know, it's good that the heroes are really strong and that they're an important part of the battle, and we like the fact that they're this nice focal point that's trying to help shape what's otherwise a very chaotic brawl in the battlefield.
Yeah.
But you know, trying to focus things on using the abilities at just the right time, and also another big change, differentiating the heroes in terms of their strengths and weaknesses is going to hopefully make a more challenging and more rewarding play to the heroes.
Right. So, I mean, the Barbarian King is sort of going to be seen as a tank, I think, like they're going to say in the release notes, whereas he's going to have a ton of hit points, as well as they're going to regenerate. Did you mention that they're going to regenerate hit points upon activation of their abilities?
Yeah, actually, this is one thing that both of the heroes now get, because, like I said, both of them have had pretty significant hit point reductions in the later levels. Part of the counterbalance to this, to help the attackers keep an edge with their heroes, is that when you use the ability for either the queen or for the king, they will instantly gain back some of their missing health. So at the same time, both the king and the queen are also going to be now getting a damage boost, so you're going to have to think carefully about when you use their ability. If you're going to use it in a more defensive mode to try to regenerate some hit points to maybe keep them from getting taken out when they get into a tough spot, or if you're going to try to wait for that perfect time to maximize their damage. So like you said, the king now is really going to be specialized as a tank, and this felt like a very natural choice for us, especially because the king, you know, you can, if you're very diligent, get the king all the way back at Town Hall 7. I guess most people probably have him at Town Hall 8.
Right.
And at that level, you don't really have this, you know, strong sense of damage control in the battle that maybe you didn't do in Town Hall 9 or Town Hall 10 when you have these high-level golems. So the king is sort of giving you an early chance to try to utilize damage control well in your armies. And like I said, even though his hit points are lower, his healing ability now is so significant that if you utilize his healing ability to the very most, at every single level, the king now has the potential to take more damage than he ever had before. So he's really going to be an important unit in terms of controlling damage, but to compensate for this, his damage output, his damage per second, has actually been quite significantly reduced. And while he still does get a damage boost when he uses Iron Fist ability, it's not going to be nearly as powerful as it used to be. However, to help with this damage control, he's also going to spawn twice as many barbarians. So you're going to find the ability has a bit of a different feel. It's going to be more in terms of trying to keep the fray going.
So I guess there's one final note when it pertains to heroes on offense, and that's the fact that, I guess, talk about the rage spell and what effects, or I guess what changes are going to be coming in this update as far as their effect on heroes.
Okay, this is another very important part, and this is actually related, or it's very, very relevant to the Queen, in fact. So if we want to touch on the Queen very briefly, she's had changes that are the sort of counterpart to the changes that we did for the King. So now the Queen, her hit points are quite a bit reduced, even compared to how she was before. However, now she is getting this very strong, like these sort of high damage flaming arrow shots that she's going to get, only available to her when you're using her ability. And this is now going to be her peak damage output. And in the lower levels, it's now going to allow the Queen to do more damage than she ever used to be able to do in the old version of the heroes, even under Rage. However, part of, I think, what made the hero such a sort of sloppy and a bit too safe option to use on offense in the past is just the fact that the Rage spells were so powerful. And we've sort of felt that if we want to push the focus of the heroes into a more challenging mode where you have to use the abilities well and use their strengths to their utmost while trying to mitigate their weaknesses, the Rage spell sort of, in a way, can kind of undermine that, just like it would have been if the healing spell was too powerful. Maybe some of you know this. I don't know if a lot of you know this, but actually healing effects that come from the healing spell or that come from the healer are actually significantly reduced on the heroes. It's always been this way. Basically, the reason is, for most normal units, you're dealing with pretty low stats. You're dealing with damage per second in the 10s. You're dealing with hit points maybe in the 100s. So these effects, spell effects, and healing effects are a bit amped up. But when you're dealing with heroes, when you have the damage per second in the 100s and hit points in the 1000s, they're sort of not quite appropriate anymore. So the healing has always been reduced, and now we're going to do the same for the Rage, so that Rage effects are also reduced. However, to compensate for that, again, like I said, using the hero's abilities, you're going to be able to get more hit points out of it. You're going to be able to get more damage out of it, for the Queen especially, than you used to be able to before. So really, it's going to change from just throw the heroes in, it's okay if you're a bit sloppy, just blanket the bat with Rage, and then you'll be okay, to now, you can use the Rage if you want. It can give you a little bit of an edge, but if you really want to execute the heroes to the best of their ability, you're going to have to use their abilities well.
All right, so I think that'll wrap it up for the hero talk today. Jonas, thanks again for coming on and talking about this, because this is a little bit more complicated than something like adding a level to a building or something like that. So hopefully this cleared up for you guys and made it a little bit easier to understand.
All right, yeah. Thanks again for having me, Pat. I always enjoy these talks, and I hope we can continue to come up with some meaningful ways to change up the game, to keep it fresh and to keep it challenging for players in the future.
Cool. All right, guys. Well, I hope you enjoyed the video. Make sure you guys check out the update coming out very soon, and I will talk to you guys later. Peace out.